All right, let's talk inside linebackers now. PFF continues to hammer that the Pittsburgh Steelers need an inside linebacker. They recently signed Nick Kwiatkowski. I'm going to guess on that name until I talk to him in person and get exactly how to say that. But they came back and in a recent article wrote once again that the Steelers should go out and sign a former first-round pick, Rashaan Evans. Quote, we haven't changed our answer here after the Steelers addressed almost every weakness from a starter and depth standpoint throughout this offseason. Another piece at off-ball linebacker is the one final move that makes a lot of sense. The Steelers have rotated through a handful of former highly drafted off-ball linebackers over the past few seasons and follow a similar idea here with the 2018 first-rounder. Evans is coming off a career highs with the 1,104 snaps, 46 defensive snaps, and 110 tackles while missing only 7.3% of his opportunities. I think Evans is one of two inside linebackers that I think makes sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I don't know if he's the top choice, and I also don't know if you're going to go out and get a guy that high of a caliber to kind of come in here and be a role piece pretty deep on the depth chart, right?
Yeah, I think that in terms of the linebacker room, I actually do think that the Steelers potentially aren't done adding to that position group. I like the potential of doing so. I don't know about Evans is a run stopper, right? Like he's not productive at all or useful at all really in coverage. So do the Steelers already have that type of linebacker? I think that Landon Roberts is the same kind of downhill thumper type. They've already brought him in. I think Mark Robinson, depending on what the team thinks of him, I think that he also fits that kind of archetype as well. So would Evans be repetitive? I think if you're going to go out and get an inside linebacker, you may be better served to get someone who actually excels in coverage because they really don't have that type of player right now. So, I think that they're hoping that Holcomb is that guy that can play, all three downs, 90-something% of snaps. That's why he got the 3-year deal. But I think if you're going to complement him with somebody, that may be worth looking into. But the market's pretty thin, man. When I'm looking around here, I'm not seeing a whole lot of guys just kind of hanging out in free agency that I'm really excited about, even though the free agency class was really good in the offseason. But I mean,
let me toss
Evans
out a name, Deion Jones.
I've seen people say Deion Jones. I was looking at Nick Fairball. He posted some stuff about Deion Jones early in the offseason. He was saying that he looked like he still had something left in the tank after he got traded to Cleveland last year. I know Deion Jones has always been a really athletic guy. I know that he, kind of fell out of favor in Atlanta. They elected to go with some younger pieces, but I would need to watch the tape to really see on him because I honestly didn't watch him enough last year to say for sure one way or another. But I mean, Evans was, I think, 20th in terms of run stops last year overall among linebackers. I mean, he was really productive last year. So I think he's a situational piece. He's not a complete linebacker by any means, but it really just depends on, what kind of player do they want to add to the room. I think that they've sniffed around on enough pieces to where I think that they could definitely still be in the market depending on what training camp looks like.
Yeah, I agree. I think I wrote about possibly Reuben Foster the other day, and my thought there was last year they brought 7 inside linebackers to training camp. The year before that, they brought 8 inside linebackers to training camp. This year, it's 6, and it's like barely 6 because they just signed somebody after minicamp. And last year there were, I don't want to say better options, but you looked at the room and like the worst case scenario was like Ulysses Gilbert, and you thought, he's not going to make the roster, but this guy is a guy who's been on the roster the last 2 seasons. This year, it's like there's nobody, there's no competition. There's no real competition, I would say, for the end of that. And I like Rashaan Evans, but at the same time, where are you going? Like, what's your plan? Is your plan for Mark Robinson to be knocked down to the 4th inside linebacker? Is your plan for Evans to come in here and be the 4th inside linebacker? Is that just going to be an open competition to see what's going on? Because I just feel like you're playing a fine line with your development of Mark Robinson. And I think that they like him enough where they want him to be involved. But at the same time, are you going to just like avoid competition then to say, oh, well, we'll just go out and get another, very low ball inside linebacker that really isn't going to contribute much because we're just nervous that somebody's going to come in here and be better than Mark Robinson. I just don't know if that's their train of thought or even if that's how they should approach it.
Yeah, I think when you look at Robinson, the limited film that he put on last season, I think you see a guy who plays downhill. He plays with that violence, that physicality, especially against the run. I think that his work as a cover guy is completely unknown at this point.
Yeah.
I think that there's some concerns about, how his athleticism or how he's going to play in space, which is valid. I think one of the things with Robinson is getting him to still play fast but under control. Missed tackles were a little bit of a problem last season, particularly in the preseason and regular season. He had some big missed tackles up specifically in that Cleveland game to end the season that it actually ended up looking like it got him benched. So I don't know how they feel about him. Robinson, I'm always skeptical of, pushing for guys that are 6th, 7th round picks, even if I do like what I've seen from them, just because those guys just are always on a shorter leash. They just don't have the same leeway as like some other guys do. So I'm interested to see, where he slots in the preseason, where he's improved. But I definitely don't want to close the door on them potentially adding to the inside linebacker room. But if it was me, I would prefer to get somebody who's a little more versatile in coverage than a guy like Rashaan Evans.
Yeah, I agree. Even if it is more of a super, I don't want to say superstar, but even if it is a bigger name, I agree. I think it should be somebody in coverage because Cole Holcomb, I think, is viewed right now, just like you said, as that 3-down off-ball linebacker. Like he's the guy. But you don't know what he's going to be after a foot injury. You don't know if Landon Roberts is going to be able to pick up the slack. You don't know if anybody's going to be healthy all season long. And it kind of just feels like after Holcomb, it's a Landon Roberts who's, his talent fits this mold right here. And then Mark Robinson fits this mold right here. And then it's, Chappelle Russell who fits this mold right here. And Kwiatkowski who fits this mold right here. It's a lot of the same guys. You need to switch it up. I think the problem there, like you said, is that it's kind of slim pickings at this point. I don't know how you go about that situation without going to get somebody who might just be a sleeper, but maybe that's who they find. I think that's what they went out and did last year. You think there's any chance, and this is a name that maybe fans don't want to hear, but you think there's any chance they give Marcus Allen a call and say, hey, come on back here, buddy?
I mean, that would only be for special teams related, I guess. But I think that while the market doesn't look the greatest right now, I think that there's a definite chance that they could maybe scoop somebody up after veteran cuts, in the preseason. We see a couple surprising names, happen around that type of the time of year. They traded for Joe Schobert around that same time a couple years back. That necessarily didn't work out in their favor. But, I definitely think that there's potential there. When rookies play well in the preseason, sometimes they will push out veterans that are more expensive and things like that. Sometimes you can get those guys for, pennies on the dollar, whether it be a trade for some day 3 capital. And the Steelers aren't going to turn their nose up at that, I don't think. It's going to have to be the right set of players. I mean, I don't love what they have in the inside linebacker room right now, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know that a player like Rashaan Evans is exactly what they need.
Yep. So. I agree. And preseason trade would be the Joe Schobert trade happened like 20 minutes before kickoff. So,
yeah, it was close.
So you never know. You never know walking in, especially with Omar Khan chilling there.